And it is time for sports brought to you by Cicino's Pizzeria. We've got Paul Russo with us. Paul, a busy weekend in sports, not just local, but sports in general. Maybe some would say your favorite weekend of the entire calendar year.
I'd say second favorite, but yeah,
Close.
this weekend's
Close.
up there, yeah.
Close. Big week for high school hoops.
Yeah.
Big week for you and Nate. Here,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, the Road Warriors will be at it this week in full effect. Yeah, I mean, today's the only, I'll put it this way, because of the weather, and we've been very lucky in the high school space this year, this is the only planned day off, technically, of no basketball games scheduled. That being said, I can't speak to what's going to happen Thursday and Friday. Who knows what might happen there. But we're looking fine for the first batch of games coming up tomorrow and Wednesday, the pre-quarterfinal games in sectional play. A couple to highlight, mainly tomorrow.
Yep.
Starting boys C1 that season, the 9th seed Marcus Whitman at number 8 Bloomfield. Tough go of it kind of for both teams. Both had really good years and find themselves in the midway bunch of C1 and end up seeing each other. And they end up meeting up, usually kind of a non-league game here and there anyway at this point. But that's going to be really interesting to watch. C2 has the 11th seed Clyde Savannah squad going up and seeing fellow Wayne County team Ganonda at the 6th seed. So a lot of familiar faces and familiar foes going at it early. B1 girls, Geneva and Newark go at it tomorrow. Penn and Williamson Marion in B2. And then also in D1 you have Naples, South Seneca. So a bunch of teams are used to seeing each other going at it early on. And that's something that we're used to really seeing more, say, on the boys' side on B1. I mean, that's the one we really talk about. But, man, a lot of really good matchups that we see a lot of these Wayne Finger Lakes teams that see each other face off against each other, and they're going right at it right away.
Absolutely. And that is not the only basketball action that we've been thinking about. Tough weekend for Syracuse, especially having a little glimmer of hope late last week that things maybe were improving.
Yeah, it almost it's weird because I keep saying, some of these losses just can't get any worse, but this one I don't know if I can say it's the worst of the bunch. They just did not look prepared. They did not look ready to go. And look, this is a Duke team that frankly should be on the bubble, I think, because they're Duke. They're getting a little bit of the mainstream side of things where they're getting a little bit better of a reputation than maybe they are. What's funny is analytically, they're probably where they should be actually inside the tournament. And that's one of those strange deals where at least the numbers don't lie, but maybe our eyes do to us in that sense. It is what it is, right? I think this Syracuse team at this point, and I will go ahead and die on this hill, frankly, this is the most athletic team in my mind that, at least in my lifetime, they've had. And to be honest, the coaching staff as a whole has squandered it. At some point, look, at some point, this is the thing I think some people forget about, at least on the collegiate side of sports. The head coach, whether it be football, basketball, baseball to a degree, softball to a degree, but your mainstream sports, your head coach isn't really so much doing a lot of the tactical stuff. Right. They're commanding the troops, right? They're still the general out there really doing it. But at some point, some blame does have to go on to the coaching staff who handle a lot of the day in, day out aspects of practice, who handle a lot of that X's and O type thing. So at what point here do we start doing a little finger pointing at Jerry McNamara, at Autry, at some of these other guys on the bench? I think at this point they do deserve some heat.
I mean, I think if you're going to start to flush any of the coaching staff out there, you've got to start with Boeheim.
Oh no, I don't disagree. No, look, I don't disagree.
You're gonna
I've been one of the
revamp.
I've been one of the more probably outspoken people on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been banging the Boeheim probably should have been gone 5 years ago thing more than anybody. So I certainly agree there. But a game like that where it's whatever, I think there's got to be a lot of blame going on in that front part of that bench.
Yeah. And a little hockey news over the weekend. Sabres, good, bad, and ugly, all combined.
Yeah, in a way, but you take the win as a win against a team in the Sharks that you should beat. The Sharks, who are sellers at the trade deadline here, 4-2. Owen Power Cousins, Tuck, and Skinner all had goals. Darlene, Tuck, and Thompson had assists. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen looked pretty good in my opinion. Saved 28 of 30 shots. Clicks the win. They improved their road record to 17-8-2. Still don't understand how that's happening. But look, a big matchup tomorrow here against Toronto in Buffalo, 7:30 tomorrow night. Toronto team that has revamped over the weekend to a degree, bringing in Ryan O'Reilly from St. Louis. So it's going to be, I wouldn't say it's tough sledding. I mean, obviously at home, I mean, they appear to be worse off. But that being said, this is going to be an interesting Buffalo team here. Kind of seems, we know they aren't going to be sellers at the deadline, but are they going to mortgage any of the future off here to try and bring somebody in? I don't think they should. I don't think they do. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how the front part of this week kind of plays out, kind of to really get things going forward for them.
Focus on the future. Yeah. And, of course, we alluded to it a little while ago, one of your favorite weekends of the entire year. And I have to admit, first Daytona 500 I've watched from start to finish.
Wow.
In probably 10 years. Probably. So a little bit of my brain trying to do mental gymnastics, wrapping, figuring out like, holy crap, all these people that were like young drivers when I last watched are now like gray and old and like almost time to put out to pasture kind of deal. But what were your big takeaways from yesterday's race, the great American race?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I don't think it's going to go down as one of the all-time greats by any means, but certainly in terms of ones I've really seen and watched, I mean, it was still a good one. I mean, all things considered, it was actually a pretty quick moving race up until really the last little bit. Saw a lot of action up front. I think it was the 10th most competitive Daytona 500 on record in terms of lead changes. Yeah. So for the 65th running, you got to take that at a pretty good value. Yeah, you mentioned it's kind of funny. The guy that you probably saw as a rookie won the race the last time you watched him full, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Great storyline. Ricky's a bit of a meme within the NASCAR world, admittedly, to the point that you even shot a message out to me. It was, they even called him Recky Spin Twice.
Recky Spin Twice.
And it's very much so true. I mean, I jokingly will call him Ricky Stenhouse Jr. every now and then to appease the masses, but he's one of the best plate drivers. And does he take some risk doing it? Oh, yeah, definitely. But this is big. Big for the team. This is the first single-car team victory since 2011 with the Wood brothers in the Daytona 500. This team, JTD Doherty Racing, been longtime stalwarts within the sport. Yeah. In fact, within the ownership group, you have the first woman owner to win the Daytona 500. You have the first African-American owner in Brad Doherty to win the Daytona 500. So it's a nice storyline win. Yeah, and it's not like what we've seen in other 500s or even plate races in the past. Ricky led 10 laps. They were the final 10 laps, but he was up there competitive, and not like he kept his nose clean all day. I mean, one of those rare moments that Ricky didn't cause somebody to go off his nose.
He wasn't in it. So to that end, the way the race ended, we were talking about that as soon as the checkered flew. Yeah. What? Explain that rule to people who might not be watching racing week in and week out.
So I think we got to go back a little bit and just do the overtime in general. So anytime a NASCAR race, and this goes from really what we'll call the fourth rung, which is the ARCA series, on up now to Cup, if a caution comes out before the leader takes the white flag the last lap, we have our version of overtime, which is a green-white checker finish. So get the green with 2 to go, come around to take the last lap with white, and then the checker flies. So to that end, you could continuously keep going to overtime if the yellow comes out before the white flag. To that end, if you take the white flag, as we saw yesterday, and have a wreck like we did yesterday, there is an option that they don't throw the yellow. I think the part of it yesterday, and this is where I'll bring up in a minute, kind of comes into play about where the wreck happened. Right. So if it was somewhere further down the track, I don't know if we see the yellow necessarily, but should the yellow come out on the last lap, race is over, that's it. So more or less, when you take the white flag, the next flag ends the race no matter what, whether it be yellow or checker. The interesting part here is where the wreck happened. Happened in turn 1. You're still coming around at that point. If you take the checker flag at a pretty good clip of speed with emergency personnel, not in the racing line at Daytona because of the turns.
Yeah.
I mean, 33 degrees of banking. They're not going to be.
No.
They're not going to be hanging out one up there, but none of the cars are going to be staying up there. It's just the way
Right.
physics work, right? So,
Yeah.
but to that end, we've seen crazy things happen. The one that sticks out in my mind is at the end of the 2014 Xfinity race at Daytona, there was a wreck in turn 1 well after the checker flag had thrown.
Yeah.
So you have to think about if that were to happen again, what type of thing are we looking at here? And obviously, in the terms of safety and in terms of health for the drivers, they did the right thing. Do I agree that's probably not the best way to go about it? Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. But to that end, I will say this. Before NASCAR absorbed ARCA, which is that 4th run series I talked about, their rule was always the race had to end under green.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when some of those races would go a while, they went a while. I think it comes into a bit of a quality over quantity type scenario, if you will, at that point. But
Yeah, because nothing says quality like
Yeah.
a guy in a booth making a decision.
well, yeah,
You want to
sure.
see the race end, and I understand
Yeah.
like the safety element of it and kind of the practicality,
Yeah.
because I think that was as much that
Mhm.
probably was as much a factor as anything else.
Right.
But at the same time, you have this race that, okay, it may not have been like top 5 most exciting. It was a good race.
Yeah, yeah.
And to have it end that way, where, because of the way they changed cameras when the wreck actually happened,
Yeah.
you didn't even see the lead cars.
And that's been a problem with Fox throughout not just the Speed Weeks, but the past couple of years have been not kind to their coverage. They have missed a lot of big moments like that.
Yeah.
And look, I get you need to show the wreck and what's happening in that sense, but the fact of the matter is, not only did they more or less miss the determining spot where NASCAR declared Ricky the winner, in the race on Saturday in the Xfinity race, the same thing happened. A wreck happened on the backstretch on the last lap. They had to throw the caution, and they missed what actually was a 3-wide finish on the backstretch where they had to determine the winner, and we didn't see it.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
And I agree. That portion of it, I 100% agree with. To me, it's borderline inexcusable.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I don't know if I fully would be aware of issues like that had it not been for like the stuff that we do here, even.
Another element of it too is like, and that was the first race I've watched in a long time,
Mhm.
obviously. But in other sports, and I think of golf, I think of the NFL,
Sure.
I think of basket, like the ground rules
Yeah.
of overtime, of extra play, or whatever the case may be, are kind of referenced like multiple times during overtime, and
Right.
I don't recall them mentioning any caveats within the green-white
Yeah.
checker finish. I could have seen a scenario yesterday where, a real lay NASCAR fan would have just not even known and just expected another green-white checker
Right.
to follow that,
Yeah.
which
That's
broadcast issue, I guess.
Correct. That's the tough spot about it. And it's it's not necessarily ESPN. It's where we consume the product of Formula One in America is on ESPN. So technically, it's Sky Sports
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
But they do a really good job of I wouldn't say boiling it down to a kindergarten level, but they at least explain stuff out better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, and this isn't a knock, 'cause Mike Joy is the play-by-play guy for Fox, is
Yeah.
NASCAR royalty at this point in terms of broadcasting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been there since, I believe, the 79 Daytona 500
Yeah.
as a rookie
His voice
reporter.
is synonymous
Yeah.
with
And
NASCAR.
I think that's where, and this, again, I think this is a bit of a broadcast thing where I don't have a problem with two drivers as the color commentators in the booth, but I think a guy, a name that you probably might recognize in Larry McReynolds,
Yeah.
being back in the booth as the crew chief voice or another crew chief voice where they can explain stuff like that better than Tony Stewart or Clint Boyer would be able to do.
Well, so this is a television broadcast being
Yeah.
consumed by millions of
Mhm.
people, not just in America, but across the board.
Right.
How hard is it just to throw a graphic up?
Yeah, I
like
mean,
a little
yeah.
corner graphic or just literally anything anywhere on the screen that just gives people an idea, a reference point, basically.
And it's funny because Fox, when they first got the NASCAR broadcast rights back in 2001, okay, we're talking 22, technically 23 seasons ago now. They were on the forefront of bringing in like these graphics, these different design models to show fans like this is what goes on here.
Yeah.
And obviously there's shifts in paradigms. I mean, I'm sure you saw in the starting lineup yesterday how we've gone away from the drivers and cars themselves. So now we have those cartoon caricatures that they use across the board.
Whole process.
And it's
very laborious.
I hate it.
Starting a race was far more work than I ever remember it being
Yeah.
back, 5-10 years ago.
Well, a lot of that too now is just because of the pandemic and how things have shifted even. But they've gone away from, in my mind, stuff that they need to have on the screen for, I don't know whether it's just visual content purposes of it or what.
Yeah.
So I do agree. I think if you have a very even novice fan who may watch NASCAR but not fully have a grasp on the exact rules, like and this is both on Fox and NBC. Neither of them in the past year or so when this rule has been in effect, none of them do a good job of explaining what the choose cone rule is, for example, right? And if you're a local short track person, you understand it perfectly because that's every Saturday night, Friday night for you.
Yeah.
But even for like asphalt guys who maybe haven't run short tracks all that much or novice fan, like you don't know what they're doing. You're just seeing them randomly pick a lane to restart. Like there's stuff along the lines, and hopefully going forward here this year they'll do a better job of it. But who knows? We've been in the NASCAR community, we've been begging for Fox to kind of switch some things up here now, and they've seemed very complicit. And I find it interesting. This is a completely different discussion that the broadcast rights are up at the end of next year for both Fox and NBC. So who knows what we'll see actually.
Hopefully somebody new can push some boundaries there.
Right.
John Rahm got another victory at the Genesis yesterday. He's got 3 wins this year. Nate and I are going to be talking more about that this